Where do you keep your money? Hopefully, the answer is somewhere safe, but hopefully not a literal safe. Because if you're keeping your money in a safe or in your backyard doomsday bunker, which by the way, I'm very jealous of, then I hate to let you know that while your money is going to be safe from a lot of things, one thing it will not be safe from is time, and therefore, inflation. If you hate losing money just as much as I do, stick around because we're going to talk about how you can offset that inflation, saving you tens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars every single month and year on year. Now you might be asking, okay, so what's the secret here? If I'm not supposed to keep it in my apocalypse-proof safe room, what am I supposed to do? And that is a great question. And that's where a thing called HYSAs, or high yield savings accounts, come in. So once upon a time, people used to do a whole lot more of their banking at brick and mortar locations. You'd go to a physical bank to do your banking needs. If you didn't have a physical location to go to, well, you might just kind of hold on to your money. You might stuff it in a drawer. However, in the modern age, we've moved largely to online services. So you're not limited by that physical location. You have more options. This has given rise to many online banking institutions. And where there's competition, often the consumer gets a little bit of that benefit. Namely, in this case, that competition led to a rise in interest rates on the money that you have at that bank. And perhaps because they don't have to maintain physical locations, they don't have to have the staff or the building expenses anymore, well, they can pass some of that savings on to you. So that explains where high yield savings accounts come from. But why use it? What benefit is it to you? Well, I think on the face of it, it's kind of obvious. Better rates means better returns for you. You're making passively more money from your money than you would if you were to keep it at a traditional bank. They might only pay you a fraction of a percent at many large institutions. However, these high yield savings accounts will give you more money just for keeping your money with them. And if you're heeding traditional financial wisdom, you're probably keeping anywhere from 3 to 6 months of emergency fund in your savings account at any given time. Given its name, emergency fund, this is only money that you're going to touch during a case of emergency. You don't necessarily need access to this on a daily consistent basis. And we could be talking anywhere from $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, if not more, in that fund. That's a lot of money to just keep sitting there, earning no interest at all. Well, high yield savings accounts offer a great solution, in my opinion, to that problem. One problem with keeping cash on hand is that it's not appreciating in that setting. You are losing your money to inflation. And I know inflation has pretty much become the boogeyman on this channel, but that's for good reason. Inflation is scary and dangerous too if you let it sneak up on you. But if nothing else, these high yield savings accounts, the amount of interest you earn in that account can offset inflation. After all, if you had $100 today with 5% annual inflation, which is actually somewhere probably in the neighborhood of what we're living through right now, if not more, by next year, your buying power would only be equivalent of $95 today because you are losing value to inflation. And after 10 years from today, your $100 has an equivalent buying power of $59.87. Thank you, Federal Reserve. Very cool. But if you were to put your $100 into a high yield savings account earning 5% annually, then after a year, your $100 would be worth $105. That means by keeping your emergency fund in a high yield savings account, you can keep it pacing with the cost of inflation so you don't have it lose value over time. And sometimes you might actually even beat inflation and end up making a profit in that account. Okay, so that's all good. That all seems great. But what are some drawbacks? Are there any drawbacks? Well, yeah. There's never anything that comes completely for free, so I guess there's some things that you can consider negatives. One of which is that if you do your banking at a brick and mortar location, for example, with your checking account, you're gonna have to use a different institution, most likely, for your high yield savings account. So instead of having your savings account and your checking account at the same bank, they're gonna be split up. But in the modern world, in the digital age, that drawback seems pretty minor to me in comparison to the benefits. However, if I have to think of one main drawback to a high yield savings account, it's probably going to be the fact that any income that you make in that account, any interest you accrue, is going to count towards your yearly income. That means if your salary last year was $40,000 before tax, well, if you earned $500 of interest in that account from your savings in there, that's going to make it so your annual income is now considered $40,500. So it will increase your tax burden. You will be taxed on the interest you earn in that account. So just keep that in mind. If you have a whole bunch of cash in this account and then you take it out to, I don't know, buy a house or buy a car, make sure you save some in there, pay for taxes, otherwise it could come around and bite you. But that's not just an issue with high yield savings accounts. This has been an issue with all savings accounts throughout time. But really, this is more of an issue with the IRS and the government, more so than just the high yield savings accounts. You'll run into it either way. If you hear anybody ever talk about only being able to withdraw from this account 6 times per month and that being a drawback, while that was true recently, as of 2020, that was actually lifted. That legislation was passed that made it so that you could withdraw more than 6 times from that account. This limit was not unique to individual banks. It was actually legislation at the federal level that required them to not let you have more than 6 withdrawals from that account every single month. It is important to note, though, that with the change in legislation from 2020, they do not require banks to allow you more than 6 withdrawals. However, they enable and allow banks to allow you more than 6 withdrawals every single month. So if that's a concern to you, just make sure that you take a look at the bank, make sure that they let you withdraw from it more than 6 times each month. Also, at the time of recording this video, the Federal Reserve has indicated that they have no plan of reinstating this requirement. However, they always could in the future, so it's just something to keep an eye on. Okay, so now you understand what these high yield savings accounts are, what their use case might be, their advantages and their potential drawbacks, if you can even call them that. But you might be asking, are they safe? Are high yield online savings accounts safe? And I would tell you that's a good question to ask. And the answer is any reputable bank, whether it's a brick and mortar one or an online institution, they're FDIC insured. That just means that any money that you have in that account, it is insured up to $250,000. So if the bank were to go under or something terrible to happen, they just lose all your cash, you are insured up to $250,000. And unless you're uber successful and just balling out there, most of us probably not going to be keeping that much in a savings account on a routine basis anyway, unless maybe you're buying a house in cash, which most of us also are not going to be doing. $250,000 is a pretty high limit. Okay, now we have all of that out of the way. Maybe your interest has been piqued and you're interested how you can open one of these high yield savings accounts because you're just tired of getting dunked on by inflation. Or at least that's how I felt when I did it. So depending on the banking institution, you're either going to be going in person or online to set this account up. Many of the banks with the best interest rates are those online only banking institutions. So just like with any bank account that you might open, they're going to ask for some of your information, such as your contact information, of course, your name, your date of birth, your social security number, some form of identification like a driver's license or a passport. Also, you'll often be asked to deposit a small amount into the bank account just to get it set up. And this can usually be done just by linking your pre-existing bank account to this new one and transferring in a small amount of money. Some banks will even let you open this account without sending in any money to start, but even the ones that do, it might just be $5 or potentially nothing at all. If you want to know what some of the best current high yield savings accounts are, I'll start with my favorite, called Marcus by Goldman Sachs. As of the recording of this video, it's offering an annual interest of about 4.4%. And it has no maintenance fees or minimum requirements for the account, which is really nice. I've used this bank for several years, so I'm very comfortable with it. I've had only good experiences with this bank, so I'm personally a fan. If you're interested in setting up an account with them, I'll leave a link below, and this will earn both you and me an extra 0.25% annual interest for 3 months. Another very popular and trusted online high yield savings account is offered through an institution called Ally, and they currently offer a 4.25% annual interest rate on your account. And as before, there are no maintenance fees or minimum requirements for this account. Another banking institution that you could consider for your high yield savings account would be one called SoFi. Currently, SoFi offers a 4.6% annual interest rate on the money that you have in their account. And again, there are no maintenance fees or minimums for this account. One of the best interest rates that I could find was from a bank called Everbank. Currently, they're offering a 5.15% interest rate on the money that you have in your account through them. And as with the others, there are no maintenance fees or minimums with that account. And finally, one more bank I could find was CITBank. They currently offer a 5.05% interest rate on the money that you have in your account through them. However, the drawback of this one that I found is that that interest rate only applies when you have $5,000 or more in the account. And for a lot of people, that's probably not going to work because if you have less than that, they're only going to give you 0.25% annual interest. So you'd be better off going with one of the other options we talked about before. And again, the one I personally use is Marcus. I like them. I've had good experiences with them. Their app, easy to use. I like the features of it. So if you're looking for the one that I like, it's Marcus. Even if the other ones can edge them out by just a little bit in some areas sometimes. But just remember, these interest rates are current at the time that I'm making this video. As the Federal Reserve adjusts its federal interest rate, these are likely to change over time. They can go up or they can go down. If the Fed increases interest rates, your interest rate in your account is likely to go up. If they decrease it back down to a low number, these numbers across the board for all high yield savings accounts are going to start going down. But the only good news is that hopefully if they start lowering interest rates, that means that inflation is going down. Hopefully. But if you know of any other good high yield savings accounts that I should know about that I didn't go over in this video, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. And I'd love to check them out. And if you got any value from this, go ahead and consider giving the like button and all expenses paid trip to Reykjavik. And consider subscribing too. It really does help. But until next time, I hope you have a good one.